Welcome, my name is Mrunal Lamge and today we are going to have a video lecture on problem solving techniques. And we are going to look at three techniques. One, brainstorming. Second, the 5 whys technique. And third, the cause and effect analysis. So let's look at what's brainstorming. You might have heard about brainstorming, especially if you are working, I am sure at your organization, people have used brainstorming. When you form maybe a typical meeting, a sales manager having a team, many or often they do have a brainstorming when they face a problem. So what is brainstorming? Let's look at the origin. Brainstorming was developed by a Madison Avenue advertising executive called Alex Osborne in the 1950s. To understand brainstorming, it combines a relaxed approach to problem solving, which is done in a particular comfortable atmosphere or an environment, and which uses creative way of thinking to solve the problem. It asks people to actually come out with crazy ideas, which if you say it maybe individual to a boss, it might appear to be very inappropriate. But in a brainstorming session, the wilder and crazier the ideas, the much better is the quality of brainstorming. Once these ideas are collated from different individuals, which they share out of their own experiences, they share out of their own creativity, where they share out of their way of thinking, and then collating or sometimes cross fertilization of ideas creates original creative solutions. It basically unjolts people from their regular way of thinking, and the rest of the people sharing their ideas actually triggers a very different way or very different path to create their own ideas. So, what is brainstorming in a line? In a sentence, it is generating as many radical creative ideas that solves the problem or that seemingly could solve the problem. Let's look at a brainstorming case to understand how probably you, given this particular problem, would think about solving it. Let's take this scenario. You are to put up a stall for a day at a mall. For what? For selling a new fast-speed internet data card with a 25% discount launch offer. So that's the problem. Especially if you are in a sales, this wouldn't be very uncommon. You do keep on having some promotions that eventually would lead to sales. So this is a launch, and how would you go about it? And your focus or your objective given to you is you have to generate the database of your customers, of your potential customers, and sell 100 internet data cards at that mall. Pretty clear, simple case study. I would like you to think, how are you going to approach this? I'm sure people who are into sales would have already started thinking, oh, this is what I would do. It's so simple. I would have to think about a great stall. Let me probably read your mind. Some of the outcomes that would start getting created, and we'll see why it is misunderstood being mentioned here. Just check it out, what are those? Some of the brainstorming possible solutions could be create an attractive stall at a prominent location in the mall. Somewhere where you know that there are a lot of people who are going to come and they are going to observe that stall. Have a standing banner outside the stall which would announce the offer in a very big way, where people will not miss it, they will definitely notice it. Some of you creative ones would say hire young, good-looking cheerleader girls to attract the audience. Why not? Welcome the visitors at the stall with a cold drink, especially if you're thinking that this stall or the promotion is going to be in the summertime. This might just work. Have comfortable chairs for them to sit at the stall where They would feel like sitting and talking. Talented salespeople to present the offer to them in a way which is very, very convincing to buy them. And the last point, explain to them that if they fill the personal details form, 15% discount given to them, even if they are not buying it right then. Friends, this is a very typical, maybe a brainstorming session outcome, and maybe few more things that would come up during the brainstorming sessions. I want you to note that brainstorming is only an idea generation tool and not an implementing or strategizing tool. Now, when I say this, I want you to reflect on the previous slides about what are some of the points that usually gets jotted down as an outcome of a brainstorming session. I would like you to reflect on that. I'm taking you back to the earlier slide. If you look at the point number, the few bullet points which are on the top are not idea generation tool as such. They are more of strategizing points. They are more of how you're going to implement and what you're going to implement, which idea you're going to implement. It's more an idea which is the last bullet point that really talks about an idea. Okay, so that's one of the mistakes people do. When the brainstorming session starts, they start strategizing and not coming out with as many ideas. So if I have to say there are 7 bullet points, and as per me, there is one idea in that. Now that's not a very effective brainstorming. Effective brainstorming would probably list every bullet point at least as one idea. Or maybe you're skipping one bullet point and then there's a second idea, or alternately there are some ideas coming up. That's still good. Maybe 3 to 4 ideas in 7 bullet points is a good average. So let's look at how do we make brainstorming very effective. For that, we'll have to see what are some of the steps we follow to make it very effective brainstorming. So let's move ahead. You got that? What are some of the steps of brainstorming? Essentially, there are 2 steps. Let's look at the first one. The first one is preparation. Choose a comfortable meeting environment. Seems to be very obvious. However, it's the ignored one quite many times. If you're sitting in a place where you are supposed to come out with as many ideas, and if there are some disturbances always happening, you are sitting and there's a phone ringing in the next cubicle. You are sitting and there is you getting your own phone call. You're probably trying to disconnect it. You're sitting there, some of your colleague comes and say, hey, can you help me out with this report? All these things actually do not promote a very comfortable mind to come out with really great ideas. So choosing a comfortable meeting environment is very, very important. An environment where you are just sitting with your team, if you're doing a group brainstorming session, keeping your mobiles off, asking your colleagues, asking your seniors not to disturb you. You're most going to be not available for any of the phone calls or for the meetings for this maybe half an hour or for this 45 minutes that you're going to brainstorm. When you brainstorm, see to it that there are no disturbances. Appoint one person when you sit in a group to jot down all the ideas that are going to come from the session. It's good for people not to miss any of the ideas, however silly, however wacky, however wild it might seem, but they need to be noted down. Choose a person who is good in taking very short, brief points. Somebody maybe who is quick in writing. Somebody is good into probably noting points in the form of visuals, something kind of a characters, cartoons, which he knows what point it refers to. Somebody who knows shorthand, that would be best. Define the problem you want solved clearly and lay out any criteria to be met. Very obvious. Along with the problem, also note down what are some of the things that you have a constraints about. Maybe the budget that you have, maybe the time frame you are looking at, maybe the resources that you need. Give people plenty of time on their own at the start to generate as many ideas as possible. Friends, this is also one of the ignored kind of a preparatory steps in brainstorming. Often, it's been my experience also, as soon as a brainstorming session starts and the problem is defined, people immediately start raising their hands, suggesting ideas, and in that they start influencing other people's mind, and those people's mind who get influenced do not come out with their original ideas. So it is very, very important to give this time initially to everyone to sit down, jot down the ideas, what is coming to their mind for the first 2-3 minutes when the problem is defined with all the criteria. It will really culminate into a rich brainstorming session. Step number 2. What are some of the norms that you follow? Now these norms are really the making or the breaking points, or the making or the breaking factors of a brainstorming session. The norms are no criticizing and no ridiculing, because brainstorming session encourages you to come out with wild ideas, and people are immediately, they pounce on to criticize. It kills the person's confidence, that, and it makes him defensive, that oh, he just ridiculed me, or he just made fun of me. I should better be careful. I don't want to be made fun of in front of the entire group. That really kills people's creativity. It kills people's participation. So it is very, very important that these norms are to be followed. No questioning. When brainstorming is just an idea generation, a questioning is usually coming from how do I actually start strategizing. It's more of coming from how do I build it on from that point onwards. No interruption. In a idea generation point or idea generation kind of a time, when you actually interrupt a person, it really kills the thought. And some of the ideas, once they don't come fully and freely and they are interrupted, they are lost forever. So never, never, ever interrupt in a brainstorming session. Let the person complete and you just move on what ideas comes to your mind. Don't question, don't ask the person to elaborate. Just go with the flow. No judging and evaluating. Someone saying, for example, in our early example, that if you have to really pull the crowd to a stall to sell the internet data cards, let's invite maybe a young film star. Now the thing is, don't ridicule the person, okay? Or don't start judging and evaluating, oh, that's not possible, let's not talk about that. That's what I mean to say, that you have to be accepting of all the ideas, not killing them, not evaluating whether they are practical or non-practical at this stage. No discussing of ideas. Discussing of ideas also leads to further trying to get the idea explained. And when you start getting into it, you start narrowing your mind and your thinking into a tunnel. And once you get into the tunnel, the thing is you are losing out on many other ideas. So it's good to avoid discussing at this stage. Now these essentially are the 2 steps of brainstorming. And what we are going to look at are the steps that are after the brainstorming, which are quite immediate, but they are not brainstorming. Let's look at them. The first step is reviewing and selecting. What do we mean by that? After all the ideas are listed, it's time for the person who's leading the brainstorming session to come to a conclusion about which are the top ideas that we are going to pursue, and trying to see how we are going to generate a creative solution of that. You have to start taking consensus on the top 5 ideas. Now here it is very important that the person in charge of the brainstorming session do not choose the best ideas by himself. Because the entire group has contributed to the ideas, it is worth asking the entire group to come to a consensus. And there are various ways that you can come to a group consensus about the ideas. One could be like you are asking them to give votes. You might ask them within say 2 pairs to list down which are the top maybe 2-3 ideas as per each pair. So each pair starts thinking and picking up 2-3 best ideas, asking them probably to write on a chart paper and put it there for everyone to see, maybe giving them 2 votes, ask them to come and pick 2 of the best ideas for the entire group. So everyone goes and take one idea, and the second idea would be somewhere down below, and they take the second one. Now as people come and start taking their 2 votes, obviously at the end of everyone going through that exercise, the person can find there are some ideas which has got the maximum ticks. So choose the 2 ideas which have got the maximum and the next maximum ticks. That shows that those are the consensus been given to those ideas. Refining and developing, that's the next stage following after you have selected the best ideas. Okay, maybe the one best, or you want to select 2 best or the 3 best, depending on your requirement. So after that selection comes reviewing and developing. Now this is really a stage that we saw in the stall example, that how are you going to build. Now this is where you can start your strategizing. This is where you can start building and developing that idea into in real life how you are going to make it happen. Now once you select, say, the top 3, select the first one out of the top 3 and start discussing maybe in various ways. So simple thing is draw a vertical line and start discussing the pros and the cons of that idea. What are the advantages and disadvantages of that idea? Now once you have done this for all the 3 ideas, then again have a consensus that after looking at these pros and cons, which idea seems to be the most practical, the most relevant, and the most effective given the constraints under which you are trying to make that idea work. So now you have selected the best idea and are now very focused that this is the idea we are going ahead and implementing, and now you can again start really looking at how you are going to develop it. So there's another kind of a discussion that can start to make it happen, giving it a final shape to that idea and getting it implemented. Obviously you have seen that what is the method, what is the process, and how do you go about doing a brainstorming session and coming to the end result of selecting the best idea. So the benefits of brainstorming is it's useful because it actually makes people to break from that typical pattern of thinking. That's very important, because otherwise out of your own experience you keep on talking and keep on recollecting your past memories and talk about an idea that would work. However, because there are many people involved, the cross-fertilization of ideas start happening and you break from your own pattern of thinking and actually come out with something very new, very original, which sometimes surprises you. This is one of the very creative ways of getting all the team together and bind like one true team, having a great team spirit in getting that idea implemented or overcoming that problem. So it is one of the very good method of a team bonding that happens at a brainstorming session. Once the people get used to following the norms, and especially those where there is no criticizing, where there is no questioning, where there is no ridiculing, you will find that the bonding between the team members starts becoming more positive. You will start each other appreciating one another much more. And for a manager, that's a good sign. Yes, guys, it's fun. If you see a brainstorming session and the more you get used to it, the kind of crazy ideas sometimes make you burst in laughter. And it really becomes fun. And in that state of relaxedness, when you are actually enjoying yourself, there's a great creative juices that start flowing. And the more the creative juices start flowing, the more richer your brainstorming sessions. So it's a very, very, you can say, a virtuous circle of creating fun, great team bonding, having a great, a collective approach of getting your work done or achieving your objective. It brings diverse experience of all team members into play during problem solving, and the richness of ideas are explored, resulting into better solutions. Let's now look at a video on brainstorming, which is a video recorded at a brainstorming session happening at Google at their New York office. Let's have a look.
So we have this page that talks about an individual business, and it has information like, the name and the phone number and the address. And we're looking to try and come up with, how can we better show all of this data that we have? Okay, so what can we do better?
I really would like to redo the structured data UI. And I'm not really sure how, but it's just so unreadable right now.
I think we should make it more structured. Really.
So what structured data do we have?
Business hours.
Cross streets, cuisine.
It looks like we have neighborhood data. Are we doing anything?
Occasionally neighborhood data.
There's also data that we could infer, like nearby businesses.
Right. Like one of the things that currently on our little tiny map, which is pretty tiny, we could show other restaurants.
When you want to see nearby businesses, you want to see, I can recognize this place because it's between the pawnbroker and the locksmith,
Well, and also aside from being a landmark, it's also sort of a good other thing to do. If you're going out to dinner, maybe you want to, you notice the bookstore's there. Hey, I'm meeting my friend. I'm half an hour early. I'll go hang out at the bookstore.
Well, so it depends what you want. Do you want to just help yourself locate it, or do you want to sort of, I found a hotel and now I want to figure out where I go out to eat tonight, so I'm going to show nearby restaurants.
But if I'm searching for a plumber, right, I don't really care what's nearby my plumber.
Right. Yeah. Obviously with plumbers you never do, right? But
well, maybe if I'm searching for a plumber, I want nearby lawyers, so I can sue my landlord.
If only we could infer what kind of a person they were, or their interests.
Right. So one of the problems with this data is we don't have good coverage of it everywhere. So, right. So one of the things that we have to deal with these UIs is we have to deal with the fact that we might not have it.
So here's a Web 2.0 type idea, which is, how right now they're using very pastel shade for data they're not sure of, and really dark shades for data they're sure of. And same with size as an indicator.
We'll put it in size 12 font or size 8 font, depending on how sure we are.
I'm sure the users would really love that experience.
Friends, you might have seen the video that is a short clip of a brainstorming session which is happening at Google. You might have seen quite many points about the brainstorming session or the steps being followed here. So, if you would recollect, you saw that the brainstorming session is definitely happening in a very comfortable place. People are sitting in a very relaxed pose. They are just leaning back on their chairs. They are laughing. They are questioning. They are actually enjoying themselves, asking questions to one another. There is one person who is there who's asking questions. He's asking absolutely open-minded questions. So people are actually coming out with ideas that are free-flowing for them. There's one person noting all the ideas down. So he himself is doing it, the person who was leading it. It could be the same person also. So he's putting all the ideas on that particular whiteboard so that it's there. And all the people who are around in the brainstorming session are looking at those ideas being mentioned there. So they can look at those ideas and let and allow those ideas to impact their way of thinking, their way of taking it forward to the next level where they themselves wouldn't know where it would go. And so they are bringing out as many ideas as possible and not only going or zeroing down on one particular way or one particular tunnel to follow. So that's a brainstorming session happening. I'm sure if you are able to follow these steps, the brainstorming session that you are going to do at your workplaces, at your organizations, at your businesses is going to be far more richer and far more rewarding in actually finding solutions that work. If we have to recap now what we have seen so far, we have explored one of the problem-solving methods, which is the brainstorming. We looked at a little bit about its origin. We looked at how is a typical brainstorming session is done, which is not understood in its complete sense, which tends to be more strategizing than creating all bullet points as their ideas. We have seen that there are two steps essentially to a brainstorming session. One is the preparatory step, and the second is what are some of the norms you follow at the brainstorming stage. After these two steps, you then start collecting or coming to a consensus is about what is that first 2 or 3 top ideas. So you have the selection step, and the fourth step is after you have the consensus on these top few ideas, you take one idea at a time and start refining and developing that idea to actually form a solution to your problem. So that's about brainstorming. Now we will be moving to the next problem solving method, which is called as 5 whys. If you see here, the method itself is very obvious. There is something to do with 5 and there is something to do with why. A simple question. Let's check it out. How did this particular method came into management circles? What's the primary reason of using a 5 why technique when there are ample numbers of problem solving methods? The 5 whys is a simple problem solving technique that helps users to get to the root of the problem quickly. Truly, that is one of the most important reasons for using this technique. So, this 5 whys was made popular in 1970s by the Toyota production system. This particular automobile manufacturing company adopted this technique and made it a part of their management culture. The 5 whys strategy involves looking at any problem and asking why and what caused this problem. As simple as that. Very often, the answer to the first why will prompt another why, and the answer to the second why will prompt another, and so on. Hence the name 5 whys strategy. So essentially, you work from the end result, ask why is this, and when you get an answer to that why, ask why is that, and that's exactly what we are going to look at as an example, so that this becomes very clear to you that this is a strategy which is very simple to be used for any problem. What are the benefits of 5 whys? So before we actually get to the examples, let's look at the benefits. It helps to quickly determine the root cause of a problem. It truly is one of the quickest methods to get to the root cause. And it is easy to learn and apply. Even children can do it. I'm sure you might have seen, if you have children, you have relatives at your workplace who are essentially children. This technique they keep on using, and most of the parents would feel they keep on using this for harassing them. But truly it's not that. They use it for satisfying their curiosity, knowing things which are slightly deeper. Okay. Now how do we use the tool? Start at the end result and work backwards towards the root problem. Continue asking why. Repeat till the root cause becomes apparent, where you feel that this is the root cause that probably was overlooked. Now when you feel that it is apparent, when it becomes apparent to you, you actually can stop at that stage. Till then you keep on exploring why. Now let's take an example, as I said. 1. Now this is something, taking an easy example from a sales organization. And I'm sure you can use this example in any organization, from any industry, and it could be from any department. So whether you could be or whether you are in finance department, or whether you are in a HR department, or whether you are in an admin department, you can simply use this technique the way it is once you understand how it works. So let's look at that. 1. Why is the senior executive not effective in meeting his sales target? A very, very typical question, I would say, in any organization dealing with sales. Now the answer for that question could be because he is not competent. Now, to this answer, because he is not competent, you ask a second why. Now why is that? Meaning, why is he not competent? Because he cannot close a sale. Now why can't he close a sale? Because he is not trained. Now why is he not nominated for the sales training? Because his manager has not identified his training needs, and that's why he is not being nominated. And why is that? Because his manager is always busy with burning issues, and so identifying his training needs are still pending. Now friends, if you look at the first question, that this senior sales executive, why is he not meeting a sales target? Now that particular question, obviously, if you overlook all the rest of the factors, might try to make you look that there is a problem with the person, that there is a problem with his skills maybe, there is a problem that he himself is responsible, that might make someone take very different steps. Could be like giving him a deadline. If you don't produce a result by this time, you might have to face some severe consequences. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you do not probe further till you really get to the root cause, you might probably land up with a wrong solution to the problem. Now here, what is the solution? Here probably the solution is, maybe the salesperson is in some way has his own part to play in that problem, but also his manager has also a large part to play in this problem. So the solution would be that the manager finds that time to identify his training needs, probably check what other areas of support he needs, maybe from the managers, what other tools he might require to make his sale effectively, and probably get all his understanding on the table, probably also nominating for a sales training workshop, and then start checking his own progress and his performance, which could probably make him a very successful salesperson. Now that's what the benefit of 5 Whys is. It's very simple, very easy, and it is quick in terms of producing or coming to the solutions to the problem. Let's look at another example. Now 5 Whys in action, this is what it is. The situation here is, a 2-week-old washing machine suddenly stops working. The first why did the machine stop working? Okay, the answer is the fuse blew. The second why is, why did the fuse blow? The motor got overheated. Now why did the motor get overheated? Because the shaft was misaligned. And why was the shaft misaligned? Because the shaft bearing was damaged. And why was the shaft bearing got damaged? Because the shaft seal was missing. So what looks on the surface, you tend to actually get to a very different kind of a reason for that problem. Now let's look at why is that method called 5 Whys? Is it a compulsory thing that you need to ask why for 5 times? Is it not possible that you can come to a solution or to the root cause in 3 Whys? All those questions. Couldn't it be 6 Whys? Let's look at that. Obviously, most causes of defects won't be exactly 5 Whys deep. I'm sure you would have guessed it by now. Okay? So 5 promotes persistence rather than the assumption of simple cause and effect. So asking that question 5 times is nothing but shows your persistence in trying to see, could there be a different reason for this? Could there be a source for that particular problem? Or could there be something lying below that? You are actually uncovering layer after layer till you are convinced that, oh, that is the real problem, or that is the source now that I feel that I have found. So you go on asking whys till you get to that root cause where you get convinced, oh, this is the root cause. Now I get it. There is a certain clarity that you will feel. There is a certain feeling that you get when you feel that you have come to the root cause. So you ask why, that question why, till that time that you come to the root cause. Now, you might come to that root cause, maybe at asking the why, maybe the second time, the third time, the fourth time. So stop. So that's the method for you. You don't have to ask a 5 why necessarily. So just keep persisting asking the why till you come to the root cause. I think that's the reason that though it's mentioned as 5 whys, it's not a compulsory thing that you have to ask 5 whys. I hope the understanding is clear, because otherwise people might have a misunderstood or they might misunderstand the entire brainstorming technique, entire problem solving technique of 5 whys. What are the key points? Let's look at that. 5 whys strategy. It is easy, often effective tool for uncovering the root of a problem. I think we have seen in some of the examples that you would agree. It's very elementary in nature, very simple and basic in nature. It can be adapted quickly and applied to any problem. It is not necessarily that you can only use it in an organizational kind of a scenario or a setting. You can use it absolutely anywhere in your life, in your personal life, in your social life, anywhere. Now the only question is, if it doesn't prompt an intuitive answer, other problem solving techniques need to be applied. Sometimes if you're using this technique for a particular problem, it might be that you are not going to come or arrive at a solution because it is not coming in the way that the 5 whys technique is being used. You might have to look at something very drastically different. You might have to think of very creative angle to really solve the problem. Then the 5 whys technique might not get used. Because if you see, 5 whys is very a logical thing. So if you are going to find a solution which can be found only in a very creative way, something which is out of the box, 5 whys technique might not be very effective. And at those times, you have to maybe revert and use some other problem solving techniques. So if you have to recap, we looked at in 5 whys, if you remember, what did we look at? We looked at 5 whys, the little bit about the origin of it. We looked at why 5 why and how to use that tool. We looked at how are we going to know or why is it called as 5 why technique. We looked at in what scenarios, in which situations this can be used, and we also looked at in which particular scenarios it might not be used.